Remember, this show is PG-13, so you might hear a naughty word or two. Tumble Track is having a sale on carpet bonded foam and New Year, New You sale, 10% off. Check it out for all the things you need for home, for at the gym, to replace carpet bonded foam if someone has walked on it in heels, which we have a lot to talk about heels today. Visit Tumble Track at TUMBLTRAK, tumbletrack.com. Train smart. You guys, there's so much to talk about today. Yul has been suspended. And unrelatedly, so has the Rutgers head coach. We finally have 10s, 2 of them. In the third week, finally we got 10s. And the greatest thing that has ever happened in the history of stick crowns has happened. West Virginia is my new favorite team, and we're going to tell you all about it. Plus, corrupt or correct, we're going to break it all down for you. We have a special segment on which colleges 90s Romanians would have gone to if they had committed, and we have so much to say about it. Today is January 20th, 2025. It is MLK Day, so remember to approach the world with love and peace today, even though it might be hard. And welcome to the #1 gymnastics podcast in the galaxy. I'm Jessica, and I'm here with Spencer from the Balance Beam Situation, where you can find all the most important gifts of the weeks and links to every single meet, including the scores all year long. Headlines. Let's begin.
Okay.
I have a small correction-y, not a correction, but a correction. So, we always put corrections at the beginning. So,
It's what's most important. Lead with what's most important. Jessica making mistakes.
So, okay. Kaliya Lincoln. I was annoyed that people didn't recognize her as an Olympian in all of the, the socials and the TVs and all of that stuff. But here's the thing. So at the USOPC recognizes alternates as Olympians, but the IOC does not. But here's the caveat. If you're a non-traveling alternate, you're not considered an Olympian officially. So if you stayed home and had to train versus you were credentialed by the USOPC to go and train in France, even though you didn't get to compete, you are an Olympian. So basically, I still count Kaliya Lincoln as an Olympian because she's an Olympic alternate, and I think that's rude just because she didn't get a credential and get on a plane. She still did the work. But I have to acknowledge that is the small difference in the United States, but not in my heart. Kaliya Lincoln, Olympian forever. Okay, Spencer.
Jessica's heart exists in international waters.
It does, and in the air, in the whole world. We talked about West Virginia earlier this year because they did one of our favorite photo shoots ever, which led to a whole segment on things that colleges should do as their photo shoot that maybe aren't the most positive thing, but are the thing your state is known for. We got to like a fracking photo shoot in Oklahoma, or really fracking photo shoot for any college at this point. But anyway, we talked about West Virginia because
they did a photo shoot in a mine.
In a coal mine, you guys. It was fantastic. I loved it, except they weren't wearing masks.
West Virginia's really fulfilling the assignment of, if you're a lower ranked team, do some weird things to get attention.
Right. Clemson and the leotards. West Virginia is doing all the stuff. So, you guys, they made a new stick crown, and it is a plunger. If you're a visual listener, you can watch along with us.
It's perfect.
We put it on our Blue Sky social, because Blue Sky, you actually just see gymnastic stuff. You don't have to see anything else. It's like old Twitter. It is the best thing I've ever seen. And it looks like a homemade plunger hat, too.
Well, I mean, I'm sure it's not like you go to Target and get a plunger hat. Like, you kind of have to.
I'm so
it's a pretty good plunger, or it's a beret with a breadstick coming out of it, which it also could be. But I think it's a plunger.
Or a beret growing a long worm out of the top of it that looks like a handle.
Sure. Also that.
Why isn't this on? I actually don't watch those, so I don't know, but this should be on the sports highlights of the TVs. This needs to be in like the top 10 moments in sports. That is one of mine from this week. West Virginia, we salute you. We're obsessed with you. Thank you for doing the work. I love you guys so much.
Is it like representative of you stuck it like a plunger?
Yeah.
Or is
like
it just like,
unmoving.
what wouldn't it be funny if the stick ground was a plunger?
Both, which is the most
Both.
important thing.
Yeah.
The joke and the meta joke are all we ask for. They are unclogging those big scores. That's what they're doing. They're getting it out of there. Make ways for the tens. Oh, I love it so much. Okay. Let's talk about what's going on at Rutgers. We've been covering the story for a while. So at first, Rutgers, we were hearing a lot of things from unhappy parents and gymnasts. And then the AD, who's Pat Hobbs, stepped down from Rutgers in August after he was told he was going to be under investigation for inappropriate relationship. And he stepped down. He said he had health concerns. But then there was an investigation into the gymnastics program. And we have the results of that investigation. So on Friday, the head coach of the gymnastics program, Salim-Beasley, she was suspended. So I read the full report. Let's talk about this point by point and talk about what the investigation found.
Yeah. So first of all, the investigation concluded that there was an inappropriate relationship, which had kind of been like, I guess it was treated as like an open secret among the team and among just sort of at Rutgers, but it was the investigation concluded that there was something inappropriate going on there. My question is, so we have Umme Salim-Beasley has been placed on administrative leave, because you have to say administrative leave because it sounds like you are on like maternity to give birth to a timesheet or something. But what my question is she suspended administrative leave because of the inappropriate relationship or because of the investigation that was going on into the gymnastics program and complaints from athletes about discord, all of those things that was, I guess, independent of the inappropriate relationship, but it's all also kind of linked because it's all the head coach.
Yeah. So I think it's all of the above because number one, Salim-Beasley's contract says explicitly that she must comply fully with any investigation. And she complied fully with the whole investigation, except she refused to answer any questions about the former AD Hobbs and any relationship she had with him. So, and their employment contract states, if you're having a relationship, whether it's intimate, whether it's anything between employees, it has to be disclosed. So she refused. So that one is a violation of her contract, period. The other thing is that there were a lot of issues that the team talked about and other employees talked about and confirmed that the team witnessed, which were a problem, which then she said to the investigators that she didn't remember, or she remembered them totally different. For example, she said, oh yeah, there's 30 people on the team because so-and-so told me to have 30 people for Title IX. And that person said to the investigators, I never said that. And if I was going to say that, I would have told these other teams who have low numbers to add athletes for Title IX numbers for gender equity. Definitely not gymnastics.
And that's related to one of the things the investigation report talks about is the extremely large size of Rutgers roster last season at 30 gymnasts. And they said that, gymnasts reported that contributed to kind of the discord of the team because it was too big and it was unmanageable. And it led to kind of division and that kind of thing. So that's how sort of the roster size came up in the investigation.
And the biggest thing about like why this relationship was investigated between Hobbs and Salim-Beasley was that the gymnast kept noticing things that seemed wrong. Like he was on trips with them all the time. He took a yoga class with them one time. And then the big issue was they had complaints that were not being addressed. They went directly to the AD and he didn't address them. And they were like, of course, and their families were like, of course, he's not addressing it because these two are having a relationship. And we found out in the investigation that when parents and gymnasts, and of course, parents have no rights to any information about gymnasts in college, period, unless they're minors. They asked to be anonymous and can we discuss this with them? And he immediately forwarded the emails with the names of the parents and gymnasts that were complaining about the coach directly to the coach. So it seemed like there definitely was a problem, and the AD was confronted by his employees about the relationship and was like, this is a problem. Just so you know, like whatever's going on with you guys, it's interfering and it's being noticed. There's many problems, but the biggest one I want to talk to you about that's so massively obvious is the daycare situation.
Oh, yeah. I read about that in the report as well, that there were problems. Some of the athletes, and we should say, some of the athletes did not have a problem, as is typical. Some of the athletes were like, this was great. There were like children at practice, toddlers, children at practice. And there were some, like one of the gymnasts said that there was a time that someone was on bars and a toddler ran under the bars and she had to like stop her routine to avoid kicking that toddler while she was swinging bars.
Yeah. And from personal experience, I can talk about how terrifying it is to do gymnastics in a gym with unattended children running around. It is super dangerous. It's not acceptable. It's not okay. It's a big problem. I have had the same situation doing a dismount, literally starting to flip upside down, saw a kid run onto the mat and had to like throw myself sideways and luckily didn't land on my head. This is so unacceptable. And some of the gymnasts were like, no, it's really nice. It's like a family atmosphere. But then another gymnast, it was a dangerous situation. And another gymnast said, the coach was pressuring me to compete injured and the trainer didn't see it because she was dealing with children at the time. And of course, there's also a time someone mentioned the children running on the vault runway. So this is just not acceptable. You can have kids there, but they need to be like 10-year-olds who can sit quietly by themselves and do homework. They can't be making a dangerous situation. But it was addressed directly to the head coach and nothing was changed. The trainer and the head coach still had kids at practice. That was still allowed. But the further point about this is like the gymnasts they took all the steps. They organized themselves. They created a spreadsheet to like go through their complaints. They then had a meeting with the head coach and talked about everything. Things didn't change. They escalated it all the way to the AD. Nothing was done, to the point where they were told by another administrator, it doesn't really matter what you're saying because the AD supports her. And they were like, you don't even know what we have to say. And they were like, and the answer was, yeah, he supports her. So it seems like this was like a toxic situation at Rutgers. And not to mention, one of the administrators in the investigation points out what a problem it is at Rutgers because they are not keeping records, which should affect your liability insurance. You have to keep records. That is it. You cannot get rid of records. There's discovery obligations and litigation, and that should affect their insurance. Should be affected right now as a university just for not keeping records, disciplinary records, records of complaints, all that stuff. So yeah, I think, some of the gymnasts had a good experience, some didn't, but the investigation showed there were many problems, including an inappropriate relationship, which interfered with the gymnast's ability to have their concerns heard. So Salim-Beasley says through her attorney that this is it's a bias against her because it's a gender claim issue because they're expecting her to be like a mother figure and also a coach, and male coaches aren't expected to do this. Other crappy news we want to talk about, the Avery Neff injury.
Oh, yeah. Oh, do you want to describe what it was? Because my reaction was just like, oh, when thinking about it. Because that's one of those injuries you see. So she was injured on floor. When you see it, you're like, ouchie, 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 ouchie. I don't want to see it. Don't want to think about it.
Yeah. So
it looked like it really hurt.
Fast forward like 45 seconds if you don't want to hear this, but she was doing a rebounding pass backwards and she mistimed. And instead of landing on her feet, she landed on the side of both her ankles, meaning she punched off the bones of her legs, not her feet. It was horrific, horrific, horrific. And she just crashed onto her head because she was still, had the momentum backwards. The thing, and she has posted that she has severe ankle sprains in both ankles.
Which is, on the one hand, could have been worse. On the other hand, that can take a really that's painful and can take a really long time to come back from.
Yeah, these kind of ankle sprains, I mean, yeah, especially if you just tear everything or they're totally stretched out, your ligaments, it can take so long, or you can sometimes never get back to where you were because you never have the stability in your ankles again. So,
Mhm.
I want to point out two things about this. One is that I and people don't agree with me on this, and that's fine. We can disagree. I was really disheartened to see that ESPN did not replay her injury, with a warning, obviously. And some people are like, that's awful. You never do that. But the thing about replaying, I feel like this is journalism. You are showing what happened. It is evidence of what happened. You're showing how hard and dangerous the sport is, and it gives people more respect for what they are watching when you see how instantly things can go wrong like that. And I think it's very important to show the pain that someone is in, which they did, showed her laying on the ground for a while. So you could really see, like, yeah, this is gnarly. Her teammates are upset. Some were in tears. Some were like, trying to, not pay attention, get ready for
Like,
the
I
next
still have
routine.
to compete in this lineup. Yeah.
Right. You have to, like, someone's distracting you. So you're not thinking about it. You're singing songs, whatever. Um, I just think it's important to show the facts of an injury like this. I also feel like this is so important because a lot of times you see rebounding skills like this, and rebounding skills are terrifying and they look easy because it's not a double flip. But this is why they're so scary, because if you mistime it, you cannot under rotate and land on your head like we saw Ellie Downey do in the Rio Olympics. Remember that? Where she just was super short and landed right on a simple skill. It was like a punch front something and she landed on her head. The other thing is if you mistime it and you're twisting like she was, kablooey ankles. And it's these rebound, they make it look so easy. And why I think it's so important to show replays like they show in every other sport is to show how dangerous and how intricate the skills are that they're actually doing, like pieces of a watch. They're just a non-digital analog clock in the olden days. It's just so important that everything's perfect. They make it look so easy, especially Avery Neff, because she's so good. Everything she does, like she almost fell off beam and fixed it in like midair earlier in the meet. Like she's an incredible athlete. So, but it was horrific, awful. I had to like stand up and walk around and like, it was awful, awful, awful. So we wish her a speedy recovery. She's incredible. I hope we get to see her do lots more gymnastics because I just love watching her and she's amazing.
On the topic that you brought up about replays, so not specifically about injury, but it was something I also noticed this weekend. A varying approach toward replays at different meets, because there was one meet I was watching where they showed replays of falls, and I was like, oh yeah, a lot of meets don't do that. Like even just like a normal fall, no injury. Like when they show the replay, it's like, here's the dismount that she hit, and it's like, it's not like the point of a replay is to show the story of what happened, and like if you fell, that's the story of that routine, is that you fell. So you like, why are you showing a replay if not to show the significant thing? And the fall is the most significant thing. And it also, not showing it contributes to this idea that a fall is somehow like shameful or something to be embarrassed of, which it's not. Everybody falls. Everybody falls in every routine. It's fine. It's hard. It's normal. It's not something to feel bad about. I mean, obviously you feel like you didn't do your best. You wanted to hit your routine for yourself, for your team, all of that. That's normal. But it's not like something to be ashamed of to fall. And by not re-showing it, you're kind of contributing to this idea that like we must cover up this horrible shame that this
Right.
gymnast had suffered, which is like, it's not.
It's
No
not.
one thinks less of you because you fell on a routine.
Yep. Yeah. The other thing we want to talk about at the Utah meet, the fainting.
Yeah. Ella Zirbes,
Mm-hmm.
which is not fainting, but she was out of
Yeah.
breath. So this is the second consecutive meet, and we talked about this last week, where she has had to stop mid-routine and like is breathing deeply And, last week, Carly Dockendorf said, she felt out of breath and that's why she kind of stopped. And Maya Hambrick stepped in and asked her. And then again, sort of before her final pass this week, when she was doing choreography, she stopped and was breathing heavily, but then got back up and continued. And both times has hit a very good final pass. But it's the kind of thing now, this has happened twice and you're concerned about like, let's see what's going on here. And it could be a million different things. So it's hard to say, like, from the outside of what's actually going on, but, worth addressing. And it's going to be very interesting. This is kind of a moot conversation because we're recording this during the day on Monday and Utah competes again tonight. And so by the time people listen to it, Utah will have already competed. But I'm going to talk about it anyway. Very interested to see what Utah does with their floor lineup, because we talk about depth and injuries and concerns about that with the top teams. Utah on floor now. Okay, Jaden Rucker's out this season. Poppy Grace Stickler, whose best event is floor, is injured. Now Avery Neff is injured. I don't want to see Ella Zirbes compete until we figure out what's going on here on floor, because it could be very dangerous, even though she's been fine these two times. You want to have a handle on what exactly is going on so that you can manage it. So, they have people. Maybe we'll see Clara Raposo in the full floor lineup.
That's what I'm waiting for. Yes, I can't wait. I have so much to say about her. We're gonna talk about her later. I'm like, why is she not in the lineup? Yeah, and I just want to say, like, Utah has a very good medical staff, trainers. Like, if they thought that she was in danger, like, clearly, I don't think this is happening in practice because they put her up.
That's the other thing I was thinking. Like, I'm sure it's not if they put her in the lineup again.
Yeah. So because they probably, not going to risk it. Because what this happens when she's like, upside down. So I think she was probably fine, and they thought, oh, it was just a one-time thing. But this has happened when she was a junior too. So I'm sure they'll figure it out. She has, the great thing about being in college is healthcare is free.
You're less worried about it than you are with an elite sometimes. Yeah. You're like, are they like, what doctor has the coach like? You can only go to this doctor, which we know has happened.
Mm-hmm. Or don't let any medical staff examine you until your name.
They might find out you have an injury, and then we'll have to tell the USAG.
Right. So I think, they're going to handle it, and it's in the best interest of the school, which is the nice thing about it being so public to, not have this happen on national TV twice. So I think they will get to the bottom of this. Other things that happened, Yul Moldauer, been on the national team and Olympian, world champion mentor since he was born, and national champion in the NCAA, has been suspended for whereabouts violations from USADA. So this is the drug testing organization in the United States. 3 whereabouts failures. So the whereabouts issue is basically you have to tell in like 4-month increments, I think, like quarterly, you have to tell USADA where you're going to be at all times. Like, here's my schedule, here's what I'm going to be. It's nuts. But this is the thing. He's been an elite athlete for a bazillion years. Like, he's used to this. This is what all the elites have to do. Anybody that's competing international for the US has to do. So he took full responsibility for it and said, it was my fault. I take responsibility. Like, he isn't, this hasn't happened to him before. He hasn't been suspended for whereabouts violations. The point of the whereabouts violations is you can't, they surprise you when they drug test you. So you don't want to do what other famous drug users have done, ban drugs, not the stuff that you can do legally. But like, who's the bicycle rider who lied about it? What's his name?
Lance Armstrong.
Lance Armstrong, thank you. He famously was like jumping out windows.
And yes, they call it bicycle rider.
Bicycle riding. He was like jumping out windows to avoid the testers and stuff like that. It's so that you can't, get away. They have to be able to surprise you at any time when you don't know they're coming. So he has a 16-month suspension. I did read that. Did he say that FIG said he can compete domestically if USAG allows it? But there might be more to the story. So you never know.
Yeah, but I did it was refreshing at least that he was just like, yeah, I screwed up. Rather than trying to blame someone else or deflect or appeal. It was just like, this is what happened and it's on me.
The only thing
I feel like we don't get a lot of. Yes. So I did like that. That was refreshing to read. Just like, yes, I made a mistake. Here is my, accountability.
Me too. I was like, Amazing. I'm so happy about this. Like, and it's Yul. Like, of course, like he's an upstanding guy. The weird thing is that two of them were at USAG meets. And so I feel like possibly for those he has but didn't he say in his statement that two were at competitions?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like that may be something where, was outside of his control. And those are things that maybe pause like, maybe that's more to the story. But he specifically took responsibility. And this is the most important thing in life. Kindness, tolerance, and taking responsibility for your own part of things.
You're saying that like you're repeating a mantra to yourself. Have you had a traumatic day?
It is a traumatic day for me. So I'm glad we can be here for everyone today. It's MLK Day. It's an important day to remember that things can be awful and terrible in the world, and the group effort towards love and reconciliation can change it for the better. So that is what I'm focusing on today. So Spencer,
Yeah.
are you aware that you're raising an army over at the balance beam situation?
Finally. It's about time I had a standing army around here.
So Jamie sent me this email today. Sid, her daughter, was upstairs sending me updates on the level 10 session and how our elites were doing as if the text were a live blog. And so this is this weekend. And she came downstairs and said, and I quote, "How do you like my balance beam situationing?"
Excellent.
I'm so proud. This is a parent raising her daughter right, and Spencer raising the next generation of gymnastics commentators and bloggers. I love this. We're so proud of you, Sid. Some Gymternet news that I want to get to also. But before we do, updates for you. So, College and Cocktails is our NCAA Gymnastics post-meet show. We encourage you to bring a friend. Tell your friends about it. It's super fun. We pick a meet to watch. We all watch it. Then immediately afterwards, we get on live and discuss it as a family, and we answer your questions live, and we try to get to letters. And we have a mocktail or a cocktail. There's a menu every week for it. This week, the mocktail is Fantasy Steel. I love the names. This week, we're watching Oregon State at Auburn. So College and Cocktails is immediately after. So we're going to do it at 8 p.m. Pacific time. That's 11 p.m. Eastern.
The late one.
Yes.
This is a late one. Stay up late.
We're trying to do them at different times. Yeah.
Yeah. Do them at different times and get some different teams. This one's also on ESPN too. So it should be more. We try to do a meet that's particularly accessible rather than something that's hidden on like a paywall stream. And it's Oregon State and Auburn, which we haven't really talked about enough this year. And I'm looking forward to seeing that. I haven't watched an Auburn meet yet. So.
And I watched some of them this weekend. But also Jade Carey is ranked number 1 all around in the NCAA. So just so you know, she's very good.
Is she good? I've never heard of her before. So
she's an Olympic champion, by the way.
Interesting. Weird.
Yeah. 2-time Olympic champion. Also, we have a weekly YouTube fantasy podcast. It's on YouTube, and it's like who the steals are, who's like a deal. A deal and a steal are kind of the same thing, I think, actually. But I wrote that down, so I'm just reading exactly like I wrote. And then we
because it rhymes. Don't let accuracy or repetitiveness get in the way of a good rhyme.
Thank you.
Got steals and deals.
And we'll tell you who's on a bye too, so you can take people off your team if you remember to, unlike me who forgot because I got distracted in the middle of drafting my team and ended up with zeros. So the league, it's 6 up, 5 count. You get to pick a different team for every event every week if you want to. We have weekly winners. Overall winner wins a full commission episode. You can pick a Leo for your team. You get badges for your victory. I've got at least 2 badges this week. I'm very excited for having my special badges in my trophy case. And there's a link in the show notes. So we enjoy doing it, and you can check out that extra. So you get 3 podcasts a week from us during college season. We provide so much service here. Okay, before we get to NCAA, other Gymternet news. The Gymnastics Canada CEO is leaving. So Andrew Price leaving for a new opportunity. In the short term, they're looking to hire someone. So if anyone would like to run
the CEO of Gym Canada, I nominate Ellie Black.
Yes. Please.
She'd nail it. She'd nail it. She can compete and be the CEO at the same time. I'm fine with it.
The other news is that Donell Whittenburg is joining Evo. So he's always trained at his second home, Wisconsin. Is that where he was, I think? And now he is going to go down to Florida with Evo. So it's nice that Evo can afford to get another gymnast. Like they're doing well enough to stay open and they have someone else down there. So that's good. Let's talk about
back to Canada. Do we have any news about like the head coach of the Canada? Because that's still an open position, right?
That is. I have heard about people, some Americans interviewing. So we'll see. I still don't know. Also, there should be a new developmental director for the US because Dan Baker is gone from that position. So we'll see what happens with that position.
So there are only two prongs of your trident.
I know.
Right now.
Exactly.
And one of them just had a baby.
One of them just had, oh my God, did you hear what Roethlisberger said on Friday night?
Yes, because you told me about it on College and Cocktails.
That's so funny, you guys! I don't remember how he phrased it, but he was like, yeah, I just talked to Alicia Sacramone. She just gave birth, last night, and she is pregnant again. It's like their sixth kid or something. So,
this was number 5. If she actually
5.
were pregnant again, that would be number 6.
Yeah. Anyway, it's funny. Okay. NCAA rankings. So.
Yes. Oklahoma, number 1 still. LSU, number 2 still. We've got Florida in 3rd, Michigan State in 4th. Then Utah, Kentucky, Cal, and UCLA, rounding out the top 8. I feel like right now we have like OU is 1, LSU is 2, and then any given day. Like whoever is at like a meet where the judges are feeling kooky, that's whoever's the 3rd best team in the country right now.
Yeah.
And as Jessica mentioned, Jade Carey's leading the all around, and Jessica has no feelings about it whatsoever. No opinions. She's not thrilled. She didn't squeal or anything.
Jade Carey also starting her own YouTube channel. So finally, I hope people get to see how freaking funny she is. Like, she's so funny. I enjoy her very much. So also rankings by high score, which obviously is the most important because that's how you win in the very end, which matters more than your overall along the way average.
So we're in basically summary. We're in meet 3, and Jessica's already ready for the postseason.
Yes, that's right.
You're done with it. You're ready to move on. It's January. You're ready for April.
So it's all the same, except Oregon State would be in 3rd if we go by highest score, and then UCLA in 4th. UCLA did much better.
Got a huge number.
Yeah, this past weekend at Maryland.
Yeah, same score as week 2, but big improvements on week 1 and looking a lot more composed. And Brooklyn Morris. I mean, I know we talk about her floor. I'm so pleased that she is competing 3 events and she is healthy enough to do that and has been progressing every week. I think this is one of the best handspring pike halves I've ever seen her do this week. And the fact that she's still able to vault just at all is impressive to me. And then after watching warm-ups in week 1 at that Oceanside meet where I was like, please don't vault. Like, please don't have Brooklyn Moore's vault based on this warm-up session vault that I saw. I was like, absolutely not. And she competed that week. She struggled on it. It's improved in 2 weeks. It's improved leaps and bounds.
Also, I want to give a shout out to all the Maryland fans who went to that meet. Usually they have
and cheered Jordan Chiles more than the Maryland team.
They have a couple, 1,000 people, but it was packed and the crowd was crazy. So many people talked about how wild this meet was and how supportive the fans were and how many people went. So I think this is one of the great things about the new conferences, even though it's more travel for the athletes, because school, who cares about that? It's great that other programs who maybe haven't had as big of a fan base, now people can see how great they are and to go out more. Shay, we talked to Shay Campbell at that meet. She talked about her floor routine. Did we already talk about this? This is her audition tape because she wants to be a dancer. She talked about how this was. She went to this dance conference. They have those big dance conference things. Where
no, I don't, but sure.
Yeah. Anyway. She went to one of these, and BJ was actually a teacher at one of those, or a judge. And she was like, oh, this is kind of where I caught the bug. So this is what she wants to do after school. So this routine is her audition tape. It is like, here's what I can do. Missy Elliott, watch my routine, and let's do this. I love a floor routine as an audition tape. I'm obsessed with this. And the big news, of course, Jordan Chiles finally got a 10 for the routine that she has done that same routine 117 times, but she finally got a 10 for it. Don't say it wasn't worth it. There's what deductions? You stop it right now.
You think it was a real 10?
Where are your deductions?
Parabola? Miss Amplitude on a dismount?
Oh, did it not go above? Let me look.
If you're a visual flung out her dismount, and she lands it because she's Jordan Chiles, but she flung that. It's horizontal.
Let me see. Let me watch this dismount again. It is okay. But it still went up.
Not really. The amplitude requirement, like what you're looking for in amplitude, is like on something like a Jaeger or a dismount, is that it rises above the height of the high bar. And Jordan Chiles gets to about the height of the high bar. Like her hips are pretty equivalent with it, but she doesn't rise up and then go down. So I have an amplitude deduction on the dismount.
Okay.
Because she didn't time it right. She landed it well because she's Jordan Chiles, but not because it was a perfect dismount.
Yeah. All right. You hit every single handstand. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's great on the bars, and it deserves a high score. Just saying.
I would just like to point out the discrepancies where she has done that same routine like for years. I mean, so many people have done that quality routine. The way things were run, she should have got a 10 before this. But I agree with you. I see her hip rise now, and she's just above the high bar. They're definitely.
Yeah, I'd like to see more up and out. This is just more out. She gets a lot of distance because it's not quite timed right, and she just goes out.
Yeah. But it was amazing, and it did a lot for gymnastics. But also, everyone should be judged fairly and accurately, no matter where they are. It did a lot for gymnastics. Those Maryland fans are coming back to more meets. That's what I'm saying. Maryland gymnastics on the rise. If it wasn't already, on the rise after this.
And also, Jordan Chiles has gotten 10s on bars before. But
and also, wait, we didn't talk about this. So, Dominique Dawes went to the Maryland meet. Got to see her fellow Olympians compete. And also, at the Georgia meet, Simone went, and she did a lot of activities that are part of the athletic traditions of the college, like go to the arena of football and call the dogs, which they let her husband do too, which apparently I've never seen that on a gymnastics meet before, but all the Georgia people know it. It's a thing. So, and I like that they let her husband, who also plays sports, be involved as well. That was very kind. And she's supporting, her coaches there. That was really cool. The other 10, because we won
the first 10 of the season.
The first 10 of the season.
The inaugural 10 of the season was Helen Hu on beam.
Helen Hu, one of the greatest beam workers and most flexible human beings on earth. We love Helen Hu so much. Cannot get enough of her. She is the one that does, she has like the kick over where you think she's going to do not a tensigo. What is it where you do backwards? Oh my God, I can't remember anymore. You're sitting on one leg and then you kick backwards into a walkover. She does that, but with a half turn. I feel like it's one of those things named after Boogers.
Boogers? Kelly Garrison?
Kelly Garrison. Isn't that one of the Kelly Garrison? No, she does it with a full twist. Helen Hu does it a half twist. No, I think it is the Boogers move where you do, you're sitting, you reach backwards, you do like a backwards heely into a handstand step down. And anyway, it's beautiful. She does an amazing job. It's gorgeous. I couldn't really see, and parabola on the dismount, but I couldn't really see one of her jumps, but everything's oversplit. I just couldn't see if it really rose well above her hip level. But in terms of execution and what you want out of a routine and everything flowing together and how gymnastics is supposed to look, everything. Check, 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 all the boxes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's nice to see, because my feeling about 10s is that you should have to go above and beyond to get one. It's nice to see it's a unique routine. It's not cookie cutter. And I think it sufficiently shows someone going above and beyond. And that doesn't necessarily mean tumbling difficulty. There are lots of ways to go above and beyond. And I think she goes above and beyond in creative movements and displays of flexibility. Isn't the Garrison doing it in a sideward plane?
There is one that is a sideward.
It's like she goes around sideways.
But who's the
sideways
full turning one named after? That's named after someone too.
Well,
there's probably
all right,
someone.
Talk amongst yourself.
All right, I'll talk amongst myself. A Valdez. That's just one of my favorite things. It's practically like a Casey Joe McGee routine. It's practically Soviet. This routine is so creative and fun.
The highest compliment Jessica can give, practically Casey Joe McGee.
Casey Joe McGee is my god. That's all you need to know. If I make another gymnastics candle, and by I mean one of our amazing artist professor listeners made us gymnastic prayer candles, which I should demonstrate now. If you're a visual listener, this is my Protonova prayer candle with Protonova and her eyebrow. I also have the keychain version. Oh, it's my favorite. It's my most prized possession, you guys.
Brandy Johnson.
What?
Brandy Johnson. Valdez with full pirouette, 1989 Worlds.
Brandy Johnson.
And yes, Kelly Garrison is the Valdez through the horizontal plane on one arm.
Sideways on beam.
Mm-hmm.
You know who hated going sideways on beam? Shannon Miller. Famous.
You've mentioned that.
It's one of my favorite facts. Shannon would hate the artistry checklist in Elite. So shout out to these two for breaking the seal in the tens. They ripped that seal off the top of the toilet and plunged out the problems and released the tens.
All right. So now that's been said.
I mean, do they ever put seals on toilets anymore? Is that a thing that happens anywhere? I've only seen it in movies where there's like a little, we clean this toilet, like paper. Anyway, I want to talk about
imagine a toilet being cleaned in a public bathroom.
That doesn't happen in the United States.
Doesn't happen anymore. I don't think.
Side note. Remind me to tell. Okay, I'm behind the scenes on College of Cocktails. I have to tell the toilet story about Canada and the fancy toilet story. Remind me, and anybody that's going to be there. I have a story about that.
Club Gym Nerd, you get discounts and first dibs on live show tickets, an extra whole podcast every week, athlete dossiers for major competitions, code guides, options to commission your own segments. It also makes a great gift. Check it out at gymcastic.com at the Join the Club tab.
Okay, so opportunities for comedies. And then we're going to talk about corrupt and correct because there are things. Clara Raposo, we talked about her earlier, Canadian, like little jumping cat of Canada. She's just such an unusual, unique gymnast. And she's just like so cheeky. Her little routine is so cheeky. So I'm putting it in comedy because like
her little routine.
Her little routine. Just like it's so like I feel like it's to cats her routine, but hers is more like kittens in the adolescent stage who are climbing up a curtain. It's just like cheeky and funny and satirical and so well performed. And she's just like a sprightly little elf doing this routine. And by elf, I mean grown woman coming into her own, just performing with all of her gifts. I just love watching her. And also, I was just like, why is she not in the lineup? Like, I can see the last pass is a little difficult on the cardio right now, but this routine, it's because she's dancing harder than
She may need to be in the lineup at this point.
Yeah, Utah needs her. So it's my opportunity for comedy, but I don't mean that because I love the routine and I love a comedy routine. And it's just so, yeah, I'm just obsessed. The plunger of West Virginia.
We're back to it. We're doing two separate segments about the stick plunger hat.
Stick plunger. You guys, this is how to get on the news. The stick plunger. This is what we're looking for.
Did you just refer to the show as the news?
Yes, the news. We are the news. That's right. Also, we have to talk about DiCello 2 running off the end of the beam.
Oh, yeah. Also at West Virginia. The younger DiCello, who was going for a dismount. I think her steps were off, or she kind of little tripped, and then was just like, nope, and ran right off the beam and saluted. It was like, see you later. That's not happening. Goodbye. And then the coaches had to talk to her for a while and be like, actually, you need to get back up into a real dismount because your score is going to be better if you actually have a dismount and count that as a fall in like a pommel horse style situation. So she did end up coming back and doing a dismount, even though she saluted after just running off the beam. And I wish that were the end of the routine because that was great.
It's Carly DiCello, by the way. She has her own identity. Thank you very
she's
much.
not just baby DiCello.
Yes.
DiCello Jr.
This was also the most relatable moment that like your steps are wrong and you just run off the end of the beam. I mean, also when your steps are wrong and you just run off and then don't end up, you just flail in midair and land on all fours or like splat. That's another thing that happens because when you're committed to a forward horizontal motion. So yeah, I mean, she just made everyone feel seen with that. And I appreciated it very much. We also must discuss my favorite thing that's ever happened, and I hope for more of this, is LSU sacrificing a high-heeled shoe to the, what I would like to think of like cauldron of Suzanne Yocklin's spirit of spiked shoes is what they created in the middle.
Okay.
You know, these are all like...
I mean, it was just a heel sitting there, but I like that it's now sacrificed in a cauldron.
Yes, that's what it is. And, you know, Suzanne Yocklin, I mean, these are Georgia people running that program. It's like Jay Clark's from Georgia. The McCools are from Georgia. So I feel like, and, you know, Suzanne Yocklin is
and
the...
Lori Strong, who is Sierra Ballard's mom and related to Jay Clark, is also a Georgia person.
Yes, it's his niece who's on the team. Yeah, I mean, she invented wearing ridiculous, enormous heels to gymnastics meets, including the last time we saw her on the floor with those, literally they were spike heels. Like, how is there's barely even a point touching the ground in the back. They literally had sparkle spikes all over them. And she had a bag that matched. Remember that? It was like a fanny pack made out of spikes. Like,
she gets it.
See-through spikes. Yeah, so anyway, I'm obsessed with them sacrificing a heel. They threw it on the ground. Like, there was some violence involved. But the thing is, I do think that McCool was wearing one of those shoes afterwards, which is why they didn't do as well as they could on floor, because they did not actually murder the heel, which is what is required of a true sacrifice. No
so
one
you feel
actually...
like they need to bring out the like Oregon State chainsaw and really go to town on the heel before they compete floor, and then they'll win the national championship this year.
It does not there's no sacrifice if it doesn't cost anything. Like, the heel was not ruined, injured, whatever. So it was just like a fun, you know, really they need to throw it into a fire or tie it up and see if it can swim in a river while people watch. You know, traditional American things. So
this is pretty early to go off the rails for us. I mean, hour and a half in, sure, but not yet. We're already testing to see if Courtney McCool's shoes are witches. That's where we are. Just to summarize where we've gotten to with this podcast. You've got to throw Courtney McCool's shoes into a river to see if they are a witch.
I'm talking about traditional American values, Spencer. That is what I'm talking about.
I feel like that's not as specifically American. That must be.
No, that did come from the Europes and the colonists. Pre-American values. Anywho, you guys, everything's fine. Okay. So, corrupt or correct? Where
we had some requests.
Yeah. And this is where we tell you about impossible scores that are not possible. Even if you really want them to be, because there's no parabola on the dismount. Let's start with Finnegan's floor at LSU. This happened at many meets. We are just using this as an example because she is ranked in the top. Is she second on floor now or first?
Ranked in the top one on the
She's
floor.
ranked in the top one, number one ranked. Yes, she's number one ranked floor performer with a high score of 9975. But she actually, it's an impossible score that she got. Can you explain why?
So she stepped backward on her final pass, which is a forward landing. So it can't be, and floor in college, you are able to have a controlled step on your pass. If you're landing forward and you step backward, that can't be considered a controlled pass because you landed short. And so you have to deduct for short landing, and you have to deduct that as a step, like you
And
would
it's
on
mandatory 1/10, right?
for a step, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is another thing I think that gets kind of ignored is that an 0.5 deduction for not sticking is only if you have a little scoot with both feet. Like that little, like, I landed backwards and then I just went, but that's the only 0.5. If there's a step, it has to be at least a 10th.
Yep. Step is a mandatory 1/10.
And if you're stepping backward on a forward landing, it means you're short.
Yep. Yeah.
So
Imagine,
even if you cover it, even if you finesse, which she did very well, and was just like, this is me presenting, it's a step back on a forward landing pass.
so that should actually have been a 9.9.
9.85?
9.85. Oh, yeah. 9.85. You're right. Yeah. That's a big difference. That's a big difference. Okay. Liz has a question, and she's...
I know there's a lot to choose from this weekend, but can you please include Audrey Davis's 9.925 on beam? For me, this one I thought was a little high. Audrey Davis leads off Oklahoma's beam rotation, and it's great gymnastics. She has a few more built-in things than we see from most of the Oklahoma lineup. Like we see it on vault where she has that leg separation on her block on vault. There are a little more soft knees, like in twisting, and her series. And then she had a balance check on her aerial, which she does a front aerial into that, grab the beam, do a split. And it's very elegant and nice. And it's very Oklahoma because she could kind of cover up this check because she goes right into choreography, which is what Oklahoma does on beam and mostly on floor, and more teams should do. Because, like, what you see when Oklahoma does like front tumbling passes on like front landing twisting on floor, they are immediately, before they've even landed, going into a little kick or a little hoppy step clap choreography, which first of all is how it should be done because it's artistic and it's a performance and it should be continuous movement. You shouldn't have the like, I have finished my tumbling pass, now it is time to do choreography pause, which we're seeing more and more, I feel like, this season. But it also serves to cover up any landing errors, because you could be like, oh, did I slide with my back foot on that front twist or am I dancing? You can't tell. Benefit of the doubt goes to the gymnast. Bye. Which is the summary of Oklahoma on floor. Remember Brenna's little like I burned my feet hop out of her front tumbling?
Yep.
Covered it up every time.
Yep. That is the secret. This is choreography is there to save you. Use it all the time.
I know.
There should be no clear finish and start. Everything should work together seamlessly.
Yes.
The whole
and I
thing.
feel like, I don't know if it's the attention to showing control on your dismounts and holding it that gymnasts have to do now, but I feel like we're seeing that also more like after tumbling passes on floor. And it's like, you don't have to do that in the middle of your floor routine. You don't have to stop for a second and show control to the judges that you landed it in the middle of your floor routine. Dance out of that pass. Don't it's the like stop and like open mouth scream, like pretending I can't believe I landed that pass I do every single week. But also you're stopping. Don't stop. Cover up that landing with a little kick.
It's the
learn
important
from Oklahoma's national championships. How many national championships they won? It's because of the little kick.
Remember, gaslighting the judges is your job. So you must, if you're gonna, oh my God, I'm so great, that's excellent, but definitely make sure to be dancing while you're doing it. This is the trick. And I just want to clarify, when you say soft knees, that means bent knees. So if it's not clear to everybody what soft knees are, it's like, it doesn't have to be at 90 degrees to be bent. Anything that isn't your joints of your long bones must
your
line
Chiles Jones has to be Chilising is what Jessica would like you to know. And I like to use soft knees to indicate like the bend is minor, like it's just a little bit not fully extended, but it's not like you're tucking. It's just a little like not exactly fully extended.
And I just say bent knees for all bent knees. Doesn't matter how bent they are.
Oh yeah, they are. But like there's a degree, and there are like,
Yes.
you have up to deductions. Like a
Right.
little bit of a bend is a smaller deduction than a large bend because
Yes.
you have degrees of errors. So I like soft knees helps differentiate from bent knees. These are the things I like to say.
What do you think? So we know that LSU attempts to sacrifice a high heel shoe in order to do well on floor. What
I
do you
love
think
that I started
Oklahoma?
talking about scores and you immediately got bored and had to talk about LSU's heel again.
What do you think
Like it was
Oklahoma?
4 seconds and Jessica's like, all right, let's talk about this heel.
What do you think Oklahoma sacrifices to the beam gods? Like, what do you think they do? They
Autonomy.
do like a tiny fracking of. A mini fracking experiment in the. I don't know. What would you
Yeah.
sacrifice? What's their thing? Their thing isn't high heels. Their thing is black jackets and really sparkly leotard. So would it be one of their sparkles and they like burn it while they all stand in a
I
circle?
think it's like Oklahoma is all like hip joints. There's just so many I feel like they have more hip joints than most people. It's all like joints and bones just in line with the beam. So I feel like they're like maybe like a pork shoulder or something gets sacrificed. KJ just gets a pork shoulder and is like, look at the angle of this joint. It's not in line with the beam, and then just burns it in a fire.
Pork shoulder. Oh my god. Okay.
So anyway, Audrey Davis's
Maggie.
beam. Yeah, between knees and that balance check that she covered into choreography, like an Oklahoma gymnast, 9925 was high for me for that one. I feel like that was kind of a 985 routine. A good one, but there were some things. On the same topic, Maggie says, if you could, I would love to see a correct or correct for Faith Torres's beam routine that scored 980 in the Missouri-Oklahoma meet. So in this one, it was almost entirely normal Faith Torres beam, where you're just like, this is crisp and perfect. But her series, she had an error. So it starts out with like a little balance check, but then it's kind of one of those checks that you maybe overcorrect or you thought you had brought it back on, but you weren't really on. So it's a check that then became a larger error. So check 05, then she turns to the side, turning to side 05, and then does a kind of a big arm circle to get herself into control. So then if you say that arm circle's a 10th, I guess we have 9-8. And if you say the rest of the routine is perfect, which she doesn't really have built-in deductions. Like, she's extended, her splits are 180, she points her toes, she stuck her dismount. So I think you can justify 9-8. I think it's the very high end of what you can give that routine because there was a large balance error that's probably a 2/10 error. But I think you can, I'm not going corrupt with a 9-8 because I think you can justify that.
And just so you know, so built-in deduction, to recap, if this is new language for you guys, for anybody that's, for the most of you, it isn't, but I'm just saying, built-in deduction is when you cannot perform a skill in any without a deduction. Like even if you're doing it on the floor or with a spot or whatever, you can't do it. So you can't do a back handspring without bent knees. You can't do it at all. There's always a deduction when you perform the skill, period.
It's in the technique. It's how you do it every time.
Yeah, you can't vault without straight arms. You can't do a giant without bending your elbows and pushing up. All of those things are like built-in deduction.
Well, or as a wobble is not a built-in deduction because it doesn't happen every time.
Right. That was a very nice example, Spencer.
Oh, thank you.
We talked a lot about the Florida meet on
yes, Florida LSU, very exciting.
Yeah, on College and Cocktails. Highlights in general, Riley back on bars for me. She had a little boop on her dismount, but it was great to see her back. And then also seeing Sloan Blakely looks amazing this year. She's doing a great job. Also, like most of their team wasn't wearing makeup, which was very exciting for me. And I thought they were making a political statement. They haven't said anything yet. Maybe their luggage with all the makeup got lost. And then also seeing Selena Harris, thriving as her usual self. Over
Good
there.
highlights. My highlight. Okay, so this might turn into a bit of an editorial comment, but I had varying experiences of watching meets this weekend. I thought the Florida LSU meet was really exciting and fun and entertaining. And then I had other meets where I was like, the only reason I'm still watching this meet is because we do a podcast and there might be something that I want to talk about that's happening, but otherwise I'm so bored. And this is taking so long. And I don't know. I think it's worth a discussion of what makes an entertaining meet and what makes not. I was really reacting to the fact that I think quad meets are so much more boring than dual meets.
I think they are too.
I think it's because a dual meet in college, it's much easier to establish what the stakes are for a routine. And I think it's like, you need a 985, she needs a 985 on this routine in order to, move into the lead or whatever it is. Whereas in a quad meet, it's so much more just feels like random people doing random gymnastics.
Yep. I agree with
Especially if you're watching a broadcast that doesn't have the scores on it, then you're like, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
What am I watching? It's just some skills.
I really appreciate that ESPN always has the scores up the whole entire time. They've done a really good job with that.
I think also, as we've talked about ad nauseum many times, exhibitions are boring.
Except when it's Clara Raposo. How dare you?
Still. I feel like, okay, so my feeling about exhibitions is that they're self-indulgent because they're good for the team. I know that the team wants them. I know why the gymnasts want them. But why do you expect an audience member to care about watching a routine that doesn't count? It's a decision made where the viewer is not the top priority, and the viewer needs to be the top priority when talking about how meets are run.
It's I understand, at a lower level gymnastics, I understand exhibitions, but not in college. It's no exhibitions in college. Now, of course, I do love it when it's the senior who's
Clara Raposo.
amazing. There's a couple of exceptions where the
senior who can't tumble but has amazing choreography, and Talia Kaczynski is gonna do a floor exhibition at senior night because she's a great dancer, but she's not making that lineup.
Right. Those are the moments where I totally regret this opinion. But in general, I just think, they can do it during warm-ups or before, the awards are given or as entertainment at some point, but not as part of the actual competition. So
we also need to figure out how to make judges' conferences shorter, which I don't have an answer to. It's too long.
Back the telephones.
Yeah, I know. They have to get out of their chairs and walk to the middle of the floor and show each other their sheets. I'm like, oh God. Oh boy.
Also, why can't they just call each other or have a walkie-talkie? Or I know they want to show each other the sheets. Or the meet referee is
just this is the answer, bye, done.
Yes.
Your stupid score has been overruled.
Also, just text. Maybe you should just FaceTime each other and show I don't know. Or also
oh my God, expecting some of these judges to figure out FaceTiming each other. You think the meets get too long now?
Well, then you'd have to pay them for data too, because it's at work and, for part of having a phone. So you could but also I just feel like the other rule is judges should never, ever be required to wear heels. They should be required to wear shoes that they can throw off their feet.
Required to wear heels?
Well, they're required. I don't think it's heels, but they have to have
I can't imagine you would be
dress
required
shoes
to wear heels.
Judges, tell me what kind of shoes you're
Only the male judges should be required to wear.
They should be required to wear heels. It's only fair.
I want to see Jessica's gymnastics husband at a meet in Suzanne heels.
He would do it.
Yeah,
he would do it. He would be really mad about it and wouldn't walk, but he would do it. Just sitting. They don't have to wear heels, but they have to wear dress shoes, I think, is the requirement. So, but they shouldn't be wearing shoes at all because they should be able to run across the floor, talk to each other, and run off the floor. And obviously, you never wear shoes on a floor, which apparently no one has ever told anyone in the United States. But it's gross, and you don't walk on any gymnastics equipment in shoes. It's disgusting. Anyway, guys.
Anyway, that was my general feeling. I got super bored during some meets, and if I'm bored, how are you keeping the attention of a normal?
Yeah, this is the thing. I do want to give a huge shout out to MSU, not only for their ranking this week, but also because they got to finally be in the big arena. I was watching it and I was like, wait, they have an arena this big at MSU and the gymnastics hasn't been in it? What have they been wasting their time with this
Really?
big space? I thought it must be brand new because it was the first time I'd see gymnastics in it. But apparently, they interviewed the AD. This was my favorite thing. Their AD, who was an MSU athlete and then in the NFL, and then he was a cop, and now he's the AD, which is the perfect progression of being in charge at MSU. They need a detective, not just a cop, but a detective. Anywho, he was like, I didn't want to promise the gymnasts anything, but, because it's really hard to like break down the basketball floor during season. And I was like, first of all, do you know how many schools break down the basketball nonsense for gymnastics every weekend? Like, that is a ridiculous, like, it's just because they haven't done it before. So you have a bunch of people that don't want to do extra work. So they're like, what's going to take so long? No, break down, get it done. This is, yes. Anyway, but I am so happy they were in the arena. I'm so happy they did such a great job. And also Iowa State, shout out to them, continuing to show that they're going to make it. They're going to keep advancing. It was like them and Clemson were on the bubble of advancing last season, and this season, yeah, Iowa State on beam. I was like, put them in the middle of a freeway with zombie apocalypse on either side. They will hit the routines. I was so impressed by them, especially, and shout out also to all the gymnasts that had to compete after the injury at the Utah meet. But Grace McCallum, she's another one that I would put over a pool of sharks on a podium that is made of springs that are on fire, and she would hit a routine. She's so impressive. So anyway.
I like that you're giving this speech like while Iowa State is competing in a meet where they missed on beam.
Well, I mean,
I just like as we're recording this, and Jessica was like, Iowa State, put them in a windstorm. They're going to hit beam. They're just counted on falling beam.
Well, they did so well when I watched them at the Utah.
Well, that's the problem. Then you weren't watching.
Well, but they didn't fall at Utah. Oh, right now you mean? Yes.
Right now.
I'm not watching right now, which I should be able to do 700 things at once. Also,
really,
Jay-Z Ranger, Michigan, her double layout off bars, insane, ridiculous.
She's not just a one-handed ray. She's also got a great double layout.
I want someone to do like one of those like speed thingies they use on the freeway, the things that gives all the police cancer in the nuts. What's that called?
I don't know. Speed gun?
Have you heard all those lawsuits because they would sit with it between their legs on the freeway, and so then like a bunch of cops got the nut cancer? Never hold
had not heard that.
A speed meter close to your egg making department. Anywho,
Men don't make eggs.
They make services. No, they make not zygotes either. What are they? The actual starts with a G. Not sperm. I know they're sperm, but like the actual. What is
gametes?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. I accidentally said to someone, I meant to say alveoli, and instead I said areoli because I meant lungs, not nipples.
Not nipples.
Anyway, but I caught myself, and then
at least you didn't say aioli.
I hope your lung dipping sauce gets better. Anywho, you guys. Okay. This is PubMed here you go. Fact checkers on it. Cluster of testicular cancer and police found officers exposed in handheld radar. See you guys? There you go.
From
radar
1993. Gun. So we've known about this for a while.
So hopefully any police or people that highway patrol, please know, or whoever is gonna hold one of these up for Jay-Z Rangers bars, just hold it far away.
Yeah, how did we get there? Why do you want to know the speed of her?
Because she flips so fast. This is what I'm saying. That I want a radar gun on her flipping speed.
Would it register?
Would it? I don't know.
I don't know how they work. Like, she's not moving. I don't know.
I'm going to this MIT
I'm
conference.
Sure we
so
have
I'll
experts listening who will write in 90 paragraphs about like exactly how this works.
What you want is where are our NASA engineers? The flipping speed thing. Anywho, guys, we have to get to a very important segment next from our Grubby of Arabia, one of our OG listeners from the very beginning. Shout out to our Dubai listeners. Her request was for us to imagine. So she was listening to this section of the show where we talked about Ana Barbosu going to Stanford, and she was just like, can you imagine? It was just so mind blowing. Can you imagine in the 90s with all those amazing Romanians if they had gone to college? Like, how would NBC and the news have reacted? It was just like the endish of the Cold War. Like, what would it have been like? And I was like, wait, imagine dramatic scenarios? Yes, we are ready for this. We were born for this. Okay, so number one. This is the Troutwig days in the 90s, NBC, the dark ages. How would Al Troutwig have responded about a Romanian communist gymnast coming to the United States?
He wouldn't have known.
If it was like Milosevic or Amanar, they would have known.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think the big question here is to who would go where is the other part of this question, not just the response, but who would go where. And I want to talk about that for like 45 minutes to an hour.
Amanar 100% Georgia, like no question. Georgia done.
And like I think before we go any further, Gina Gogian to Utah, like that's 100. That's just settled.
Why?
She already was doing Utah 90s gymnastics to medal on beam in 1997.
Okay, but did she have clean enough form to be on a 90s Utah college team?
This is close enough.
I feel
this is 100% Gina Gogian is going to Utah. There's no debate. That's settled science.
We'll have to ask Marsden if he ever tried to recruit any of the 90s. But in the 90s, I feel like
believe you even have a slight disagreement with Gina Gogian to Utah.
I mean,
and if also aren't like Amanar and Milo like best friends forever?
Yeah, I think so.
So I feel like they would have gone to school together. And I feel like Milo is a Georgia. Like Milo's a winner and Georgia Gymnastics is a team of winners.
Because Milo could have been taught to sell a floor routine too.
Mm-hmm.
Amanar would just be stuck in the chicken dance, but Amanar.
But she'd get like a 995. Yeah. Because she's Simona Amanar. So I think they would go to Georgia together.
Okay.
Gina Gogian's going to Utah. That we're not accepting any complaints about that. And this is the 90s, so I feel like none of these Romanians are going anywhere that isn't the Big Four.
Wait, when was Silivas done? 89?
Oh, we're expanding. She's 88. 88 was Silivas's big Olympic.
That's close enough to the 90s because I want to put her on a team.
Right, where are you putting her?
Oh, Alabama? I think Alabama.
Okay.
Because
do you have a reason?
Because secretly, like, she hated Milosevic and Almanar and wanted to be on a different team that they weren't on. I just feel like the fierceness and the puffy outfits are really what would attract her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sarah Patterson did wear Daniela Silivas's 1988 hairstyle as a dress at least a couple times. So that does work. Okay. Who would go to UCLA? Oh, Alexandra Marinescu would have gone to UCLA.
Oh,
isn't she the one who became a DJ?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, 100% Marinescu to UCLA.
Totally.
Yeah.
Oh my God, she would have been perfect. Yeah, I can totally.
I feel like Alabama would have recruited a lot of the lesser members of the teams who didn't make the all-around final. Well, like you finished 5th in the all-around and also 5th on the Romanian team, so you didn't make the final.
Yeah.
Like Maria Nikolica and people like that.
But also, would they all have gone to like Florida or UCLA because they thought they were going to be at the beach? And they were
Florida
just like,
wasn't really a top team at that point.
Not in the 90s, I know. But
So I feel like they would have like been higher profile commits.
Yeah. That's true.
Okay, is Vonda Hadarian the one who became like a model? Because she also would have gone to UCLA.
What about the two that became, they're like professors now? They were later though. They're 2000s. Yeah.
Well, we can do 2000. Where's Raducanu going?
Raducanu. Well, I feel like some of them would have ended up at like Stanford. Just like, but I don't know about Raducanu. Probably not Raducanu.
I don't know her academics.
I feel like Georgia, Raducanu. Yeah,
we need someone
Georgia.
who's pointing to that skeleton in the fluff piece because we know they know what a skeleton is, so they're going to Stanford.
Raducanu, I feel like, is a Georgia gymnast.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think? Okay. Question. It's the 90s. Do you think the Romanian gymnasts who did the Japanese naked gymnastics would be not recruited by certain schools because of that?
Yeah, so let me clarify if you don't know the story. A group
I thought I clarified it pretty well by saying Japanese naked gymnastics. I think that paints a pretty good picture.
They were tricked into thinking they were going on a trip. Then when they got there, they couldn't read the contracts. They were told that you wouldn't be able to see anything because of the lighting. They were tricked into doing gymnastics that was sort of nudie against their will. And then because they were wearing Romanian outfits, they lost their funding and all of this stuff. It was awful for them. So nothing happened to the men that did it, though. But so because of that, yeah, absolutely, they wouldn't have been recruited. Totally.
By every school or just like Alabama wouldn't have recruited?
I feel like...
Because I feel like Val would have been like, thank you for your body positivity.
LSU would have recruited them. LSU totally would have done it. Well, yeah, I think probably... But LSU were not really prominent, but it would have been like a Florida. Like they weren't really a popular team then. Whereas UCLA won in the 90s. So... Yeah, I think Val probably would have been totally. And that was also
and
Utah.
Suzanne would have just been like, can you win? I don't care.
Yes. Utah, though, because that's back in the days when they had like the, just muscles oiled up booty posters. So
that's not how I would have described it, but okay.
The one where it's just the back of a gymnast laying down with one leg up.
Totally normal billboard that people got their panties in a bunch about.
Like now it's just a person wearing a leotard. Then it was basically nudity. That is the comparison I'm making. Now it's like not even.
And then Greg Marsden did a photo shoot in the same pose,
which is the best. Yeah, I love it.
Okay. Who else? Are there other Romanians we need to talk about? I think we put together a pretty good team.
Yeah. Speaking of Romanians and Utah posters, I have a story to tell.
Okay.
So we do have, is this letter in here? Or should I just tell the story?
Yeah, this is from Lauren.
Okay.
Lauren says, I wanted to thank you for being part of my newly found love of gymnastics. I'm a busy mom and elementary school teacher. January and February are always pretty rough months for me. We come back to school and it's dark and cold and wet and kids are always sick and there's pressure to get students ready for state testing. It's just not a great time. But now it's one of the best times of the year because it's NCAA gymnastics season. I always loved watching gymnastics growing up, but never watched NCAA. When I started dating my husband, his youngest sister was in gymnastics, and I loved taking her to practices and watching her compete. After watching the Tokyo Olympics secretly on my phone during back-to-school teacher trainings, correct?
Perfect.
I heard Suni was going to Auburn, and I started trying to figure out how I could watch her. This began my NCAA gymnastics fandom. Since then, my sister-in-law, the former gymnast, and I have been to 2 SEC tournaments, including Suni's first, where she got a 10 on bars directly in front of our faces, and I went to watch nationals with a friend last year. I love being a fan. Just watching broadcasts wasn't enough for me, mostly because I didn't understand a lot of what they were talking about. So your podcast has been so instrumental for me to dive deeper and enjoy the sport even more. Yay! I became a Club Gym Nerd member this summer, so I wouldn't miss anything during the Olympics. This year, during back-to-school teacher training, everyone knew what a huge fan I was, and my principal even let me turn on one of the competitions on the big screen during a staff lunch. I call gymnastics my self-care because it has nothing to do with parenting or teaching. My kids won't watch it with me. My son hilariously passed on watching, saying too many booties.
Too many booties!
I mean, where's the lie? So it's Friday nights. I get all to myself. Playing in the fantasy league gives me a fun project to work on during the yucky winter months. This year, I've even recruited 2 of my friends to play fantasy with me and go to a meet with me. I plan on going to the SEC tournament again this March, and it's so nice to have something to look forward to that is fun and just for me. Thanks for all you do to keep fans educated and excited about the sport. I truly appreciate it. You have made an impact on my life and mental health. You guys are the best.
Yay!
Too many booties.
Too many booties.
There were so many booties this weekend.
There's so much booty. Those muscles grow when you use them all the time, and you gotta be proud of that. Oh, I love that letter so much. Too many booties. We've been yelling that to each other around the house, just so you know.
Too many booties.
Okay. Individual qualifiers, SEC.
Okay. Maggie says, you were discussing SEC championships, and I have a question that I couldn't find an answer to anywhere, so I'm hoping you can provide some clarity for me. Will there be individual qualifiers for SEC championships? For example, not that this will happen because I love my Wildcats, but if Kentucky ended up ranked last in the SEC, does that mean Mackenzie Wilson wouldn't be eligible to compete for an SEC vault title? So this is referring to our discussion that the rules for the SEC championship this year say it's going to be 8 teams, and in 2 sessions of 4, even though there are now 9 teams in the SEC, which would mean the lowest ranked team wouldn't compete in the conference championship. So this is a question about whether that team could still have individual qualifiers. I wasn't able to find anything about that, so we'll look into it. I mean, I think they should.
Yeah.
And I think the team should want that because that's how it is at regionals and that's how it is at nationals. You rotate with an individual qualifier, so it's practice.
Yep. And that's a way to make it more fair for the team that's left out. So,
I mean, they still don't get a team score.
Yeah.
But they're there.
And we had this discussion on College and Cocktails, and basically we concluded, I think, it's better. It's a better product if there's only 8 teams, you have 2 meets, and everyone competes, and there isn't like a weird bye session. But it's shitty because if you didn't have time ahead of time to plan a meet for yourself for that weekend, you could be competing with someone else, or you could be doing something else that weekend. Right. But then I argued, well, now you get a weekend off, so you're going to be more rested for nationals or regionals. So it's actually an advantage to not be invited to SEC championship.
I thought you were going to say, and then I argued, tough, sports aren't fair.
That is usually my argument.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it is like, you're fighting for a seeding against teams that get to compete that weekend and you don't.
Yeah.
So could be interesting.
Let's sisters in lineups.
Anna says, I'm so excited that NCAA season is in full swing. Thank you to the whole GymCastic team for making it so fun. I've really been enjoying the updates to the Fantasy League. In a recent email and episode, you mentioned that Sloane and Sky Blakely are the first sisters in the same NCAA lineup since 2014. I could be reading into this wrong, and maybe it's meant just to be in Florida's lineup. Regardless, I found sisters that were in the same lineup more recently. I'm an SUU, Southern Utah, gymnastics alumna, and so I just think I'm hyper aware. The SUU team had twin sisters, Madison and Megan McBride, on the same team. Then after that, in 2023, they had 2 more pairs of sisters on the team, Caitlin and Kaylee Coe, and Carly and Kennedy McLean. I didn't do a ton of digging, but I did find a meet where all 4 of these sisters competed, Carly and Kennedy being in the same lineup on vault. This was on February 22nd, 2023, on a home meet against Boise State. What makes this meet even more interesting is that there is a third co-sister named Sydney who competed on vault at this meet for Boise State. With 5 sisters competing at the same meet, I feel like this has to be a record of some sort. Additionally, I thought I would mention a commentator I was very impressed by. Mikkel, who is a commentator for the BYU meets, does a phenomenal job. She talked a lot about start values, bonus, and whether or not conduction should be counted. Also on floor, she mentioned she was worried that many of the ring leaps would not receive credit, which I thought Spencer and Jessica would enjoy. She is very knowledgeable and pleasant to listen to. I just wanted to share some fun facts. Thanks for all you do. Yeah, BYU has great meet coverage. As Jessica will say, it's that Mormon money. They have good broadcasts. They have good broadcasts.
The Mormons are a billion-dollar corporation, multi-billion-dollar corporation as a religion, which is what you can do in the United States to tax shelter yourself. And that's why we should start a religion, the proto-nova religion of shaved eyebrows and pointed toes. This is, I mean, I don't mind paying taxes because I believe in infrastructure. And I like, for example, that the electrical wires where I live are buried underground so they don't start fires. So, but I feel like
to talk about electricity for me.
but there's other people who should be paying more of the taxes. Anywho, yes, they spend the money well, the Mormons. They do a great job with their coverage. But I'm going to add Mickle to my list with Mao to listen to because she's my other favorite.
Elisa Mao, yeah.
Elisa Mao.
So yeah, this was from Florida, and they mentioned on the broadcast at this meet as well. And I think it is Florida. I think it is Florida specific, because since 2014 would be referring to the Coquatuses when they were competing together.
Coquatuses.
Mackenzie graduated. I think 2014 was her senior year. So I think it's a Florida specific thing, because yes, there have been sisters in the same lineup on other teams since then.
There's a lot of sisters on teams, and me and my sister would have killed each other. Like, we love each other, but be on the same team, murder.
This is my question. If one of our listeners wants to do a research project that's totally pointless, but maybe you have time and interest and want to do it, an analysis of what percent, like sisters who've both done college gymnastics or all done college gymnastics, what percentage have gone to the same team versus what percentage have gone to different teams. So my perception, and this is just like not based on anything, is that it's more common now for them to go to different teams. Like we talked about the Chiles on different teams. The Shenikovas all went to different teams. And I feel like back in the day, it was like, well, if you got one Kupets, you're obviously going to have the other. If you got one Schweikert, you're going to have the other. Get one Dancer, you're going to have the whole Dancer gang is bopping around in there. And it was like always the sisters went to the same school. And I feel like it's less now. That's maybe just I'm making that up because it's not based on anything.
Okay, so the listener challenge is, how many sisters have gone to the competed in college, have gone to the same school as their sister?
As the sister versus no.
A different
like,
school.
what's the percentage?
My question for you is, do you think, because this is why I think there are so many sisters on teams, because you wanted one sister, so you basically agreed to the other sister in order to get not that they all weren't great and didn't contribute, but you got one because you wanted the other the most.
I mean, that definitely happens, but it depends. Yeah. Is the younger sister better or is she worse? If the younger sister's better, then you're recruiting the older sister because you're trying to get the younger sister. I mean, isn't as good as Harsh, but like, you know,
they're all amazing and incredible.
Like the younger Peshek sister probably wasn't going to make the lineup if she had gone to UCLA with Sam, but had a great time at like Western Michigan, I think. I don't know if she had a great time. I said great time. She competed a lot. She was a prominent gymnast on the team. I don't want to characterize her experience at Western Michigan. I have no idea.
She's like, it was the worst.
She's like, I didn't have a great time. I hated it. Yeah. But yeah, so that happens a lot too. I think as a younger sibling myself who went to the same school as my older sister, it's because it's already been vetted. And you're like, well, I know people there and I know it's okay to do. And it's like, all right, we know this, so I'm comfortable. So that's what I'm going to do. Speaking as a younger sibling, I think that is also influential.
And also, I mean, your teammates and your friends that have a good time and want you to come there, like if people are like, I hate it here, it sucks, don't come here, you cannot recruit anyone. Unless you win all the time and all they care about is winning, then you can, no matter what's happening. These are also facts. Okay. Oh, I'm so glad we got this letter because there's big judging news. And the history has repeated itself in the intercontinental exam. So this is from Alan.
Alan says, did you see that the results of the FIG intercontinental exam are up on the FIG website? If you pick women's artistic, it will show the 116 people that took the exam and their scores. Big shakeup in level 1. The majority from the last cycle didn't make it back. No U.S. judge with a level 1. In fact, Cheryl Hamilton got level 3. Same happened in 2017, and she took the test again and went to 2. We've got the first male judge to be a level 1 in women's artistic and a lady from Algeria, which is cool. It's going to be an interesting quad with some new faces on the D-score panels.
Yeah, it's a big deal that the U.S. has no level 1 judges. So level 1 is the one where you can judge the world championships and Olympics. That's what you have to be. So, and remember, we've talked about this a lot, how it's kind of like there's some people you don't know if they actually tested to level 1 or if they're just level 1 because they're the elected official and, you know, on the women's technical committee. But yeah, Cheryl Hamilton, she failed her exam for the top level before. This isn't the first time it's happened. But the fact that we have no category 1 judges is a big problem for the U.S. because this is how you get invited to these things. This is how you know how people are scoring. This is how you go back to the to your country and say, here's what I'm seeing, here's, how things are going, here's the things we can work on. It's a big disadvantage. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't matter, but it is a really big disadvantage for the US. And, there's a lot of people that have complaints about how the US testing system works and that they don't feel like they have been, like, more people want to be invited. In the US, it's a system like you have to have been an elite at a Worlds or Olympics, or you have to have, coached an athlete that's been to a World and Olympics. And a lot of people, they don't always invite those people to take the test. So that's the other thing.
And the U.S. has just 2 people on that list of 116. Christy Phillips is the other one who's a category 2.
Yep. And you have to have so much experience too to be category 1 thing. It's like, I think you can test in it, but also to get invited to things. I don't know. Also, I'm confusing the old girls network of NCAA versus FIG. So
there are a lot of old girls networks.
There's a lot of old girl networks at play here, but yeah, it's the end of an era. We are going to see you guys on Friday. That's January 24th. Oregon State versus Auburn, which is on ESPN2. 8 p.m. is when we're starting College and Cocktails Pacific. 11 p.m. Eastern. So don't worry, it's before your bedtime. And listener Brooke.
Is it? 11 p.m. is not before my bedtime.
On the East Coast?
I need my beauty sleep.
What time do you go to bed?
I mean, I don't have like a bedtime. It varies, but like I like to go to sleep early.
Like 10?
I mean, I usually go to sleep after 10, but I would love to go to sleep before 10.
Spencer goes to bed before 10 and sleeps in pajamas, you guys. And watches PBS. You think I'm the old man for watching all Creatures Great and Small? It's you.
I'm not debating this. I'm just like, can't wait until I'm 65. I just slide into my personality. I don't think there's been any debate that I have an old man personality and have my entire life. That's not a question. But I think we also established it's not like a set of pajamas. I just have specific clothes that I use as pajamas that I don't wear because they're old and ratty. And I don't wear them just like around.
I am wearing my pajama pants right now.
Good.
Thank you very much. They're very comfortable for standing up and recording. Okay, importantly,
I don't have like one of those big old man nightcaps. Like one of those big sock nightcaps that goes to the ground from like the
you're in a Christmas story?
Yeah.
In the medieval times?
You mean a Christmas carol, not a Christmas
carol story. I just feel like it was the ancient Europes where they wore. Did anyone ever really wear those?
I mean, don't know. Maybe not.
They seemed inefficient. Maybe you're supposed to stuff your long hair in there or your wig. You guys don't get distracted because Brooke has created a Google and iCal link that you can import the entire college and cocktail schedule into your calendar. So there's a link in the show notes to do it. Thank you so much, Brooke. This is so cool. So you'll never miss one. You can plan your entire life around these. And remember, you can always add that to your favorite podcast player. You don't have to join us live. If you can't, that's okay. There's instructions in the show notes on how to do that. Fantasy this week locks Friday, June 24th at 2:15. January 24th.
Does not lock on June 24th. That's far away.
You're too loopy, and we're not even done with this episode. We have a whole nother one to record after this, the fantasy one. Try to keep together. January 24th.
I'm not the one who said June.
2:15 Pacific. Just so you know, as we record this, there's more meets today, but Spencer is currently tied for 41st. Just so you know.
And that was before I got some useful scores from Denver and Arkansas.
I think someone else that's involved in this show is the 27th. In the 27th? I'm just saying. It's not me, obviously, because I forgot. No. For this week, yeah. And be sure to check your trophy cases because there's very cool trophies in there, and I love them. And we had a really cool listener, graphic designer, created this. So until Friday at 8 p.m. Pacific for College and Cocktails, remember to take off on gay, split on rights. It's so important. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you on Friday.